Welcome to Middle Age Can Be Your Best Age, the show designed to help make middle age your prime time of life by defying the notion that once you reach 40, 50, or even 60 years old, your crowning achievements are all behind you. Regardless of whether you're just approaching 40 or firmly entrenched in your middle years, it's time to launch your very own personal journey toward a joyful and purpose-filled second half of life. Each week, host Roy Richards, an expert on midlife renewal and author of A Midlife Challenge, Wake Up, will discuss the challenges common to middle age and help guide you to a brighter tomorrow. Now, here's Roy.
Well, hello and welcome to this week's edition of Middle Age Can Be Your Best Age, and Happy New Year. And as we enter the new year, how would you like to change some of your behavior patterns and create better outcomes in your personal and or professional life? Perhaps you've made New Year's resolutions to improve certain aspects of your life, but you're far from certain on where to begin. The problem is that thinking about making a major change, perhaps even a little one, often feels overwhelming, and it's so hard to know just where to start. And if you're facing this dilemma, I've got some great news for you. My first guest today, expert problem solver, author, executive, and personal development and life coach, Peggy Caruso, is here with advice that can revolutionize your life in 60 seconds. And she will share strategies that can help you begin making positive changes in every area of your life, from relationships and parenting to health, personal development, even dealing with elderly loved ones. And before I introduce her, here are some of Peggy Caruso's outstanding qualifications. She's a certified executive and personal development coach. She's an 8-time entrepreneur and has authorized 4 books, including the most recent one we'll be talking about today, Take the First Shot, Strategies to Fire You Up and Change Your Life. And she's been featured on Women's Radio, Word of Mom Radio, WHBC 90.3 in New York City, and Ask the Expert on WCED, in addition to executive and personal development. Peggy is an advanced NLP master practitioner and trainer and certifies qualified folks to become life coaches. And she's recognized as an expert in getting both children and adults off their depression medications, recognizing their issues and helping them move forward in a positive direction. And hello, Peggy Caruso. Welcome to Middle Age Can Be Your Best Age.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, in the tagline to your book promotion, you tell us that a person can revolutionize your life in 60 seconds. This sounds to me like a pretty tall order. Can you perhaps give us a few thoughts on what a listener might do within the next minute to possibly transform his or her life?
I sure can. In executive and personal development coaching, everybody wants a quick fix. And you and I and all the listeners out there know that you can't solve a major problem in less than a minute, but it takes a minute to take a technique or a strategy to move you in the right direction. Once you decide to make that goal, if you can put it in manageable bite-sized pieces, then you can reach that goal. And I can give you tips on any of those areas that you talked about, whether it's relationships or weight loss, smoking cessation, elderly, any of those things. There's always something you can do, and when you take a small step, it's a motivator to keep you going to reach the long-term goals.
Yeah, it's so crucial that you separate taking steps toward a solution with obtaining an instantaneous solution. I think so many people give up too quickly simply because within a short period of time they don't reach that perfect result, even though they could be feeling very good about striving over time with a plan to achieve it.
That's so very true. Do you want me to give you an example?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. I'll use like weight loss or smoking because the new year is coming upon us and everybody's reaching out to me and saying, How do I set
Same thing.
New Year's goal?
Weight loss is what we resolve to do every year, I think.
It is, and everybody stops because they make it too hard for themselves. So one of the things I find in weight loss, like people will come to me that have gone through major programs out there and they lose the weight, but they gain it back. You gain it back because of the way that your mind works and your thought process. So an example would be people stand on that scale every day and check their weight. And say you feel really good as you start achieving your goal, and there could be many things that fluctuate your weight, like water weight or, you know, something you ate or inflammation, and people get discouraged and then they stop their goal. But if you put a sticky note on your scale with the weight that you want to be, and that's what you step on every day and look at, you're training your mind to head toward that goal.
Oh, that's a good idea. So when we start acting on solving our problems rather than merely fretting over them, we will be, as you call it, revolutionized even before the problem solution is finalized. Can you please begin by defining what you mean by the term revolutionize? How do we revolutionize ourselves?
Revolutionize means to make a positive change. And so, like I said a little bit ago, if you set your goal so high and then it becomes non-attainable. Smoking is another example. You know, people say, okay, just, hypnotize me or do this and I'll just quit smoking. But if you just use visual aids, like lay your cigarettes out and stare at them and look at how many you smoke
Not
a day.
Not a very pleasant sight. Especially if you lay out the burn cigarettes in your ashtray. That's even less pleasant.
If you start taking one away a day and it's doable, and then you incorporate other things like time. Like if you don't smoke at your job and you realize that you're smoking a half a pack from 4 o'clock when you leave until 8 o'clock when you're done for the evening, that's a lot of cigarettes in those hours.
Yeah, and if you can tolerate the whole day on your job without smoking, you can certainly tolerate 4 hours in the evening avoiding it when you think about it.
You absolutely can, yes.
Well, the subtitle of your latest book, Take the First Shot, is Strategies to Fire You Up and Change Your Life. To whet our appetite a bit more, you gave us, I think, the example of smoking, but can you maybe summarize one or two of these strategies that we might use to change our lives?
I have a cute one. It's for some women out there that come in, and so in relationships, as you know, say you start out in the beginning and your spouse does 5 really amazing things, like open the car door, send you flowers, buy you a card, and then the next year one falls off, and what do people say? They say, but he still does 4 things, and then pretty soon you're down to nothing, and the spark is gone. So I had a woman walk in, I said, change your lipstick.
Yeah.
And she just looked at me, and I said, you know what, we all, me included, you get comfortable, you work all day, you're executive, you come home, you want to put something really comfortable on. And a lot of men will come in and say, my wife used to wear lipstick and makeup, and now when she gets home, she doesn't really take care of herself.
She doesn't care what she looks like. She doesn't care about me.
Exactly. So you do one small change, like change your lipstick.
Yeah,
get a new hairdo. Uh-huh. Yeah, there's so many things you can do. I have 100 strategies in my book, whether it's friendship, elderly, health, personal development, work-life balance. There's always a step you can take in less than a minute. And there's actually, you can use multiple ones, and you can do them constantly because they're easy.
Yeah, and on the promotion on your website, you advise that your book, Take the First Shot, is designed to help readers in 4 key areas of life. What are these 4 areas?
Well, it's relationships, of course, because relationships can be spouse, friendships, any of those things. Your health, because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything else. Work-life balance is absolutely huge, and personal development. So within those comes, like the elderly care and all those, that's part of relationships.
Yeah. And that balance of career and family obligations, I don't know how anyone can have a really great home life and yet hate their work and not bring the pressures of the day home to impact the evening with a spouse and kids. I would think that would be very hard.
Absolutely. a lot of people need to stop doing technology. Like I always say, one of the cute hooks I use is invite yourself to dinner. In other words, when you get home from work, leave work at work and shut your phone off and invite yourself to dinner. Sit down with your family and really communicate verbally without the technology. Huge.
Yeah, I think so few of us do that. You go to a restaurant these days and you see the kids sitting there with their little laptops and iPhones, totally ignoring what the parents are doing.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that probably also happens at home. But, well, from your resume and website profile, you appear to be highly successful and positive with so many wonderful relationships. But in your book's introduction, you reveal that this was not always the case. Will you please tell our listeners about some of the extreme hardships you experienced as a young adult, and equally important, how you were able to recover emotionally and go on to become the successful author, professional development, and life coach that you are today? How are you able to do it?
Well, like I said, it wasn't always easy. People look at me now and say, well, you don't understand. You're very successful. I said it wasn't always that way. There was a time where I raised my kids by myself, financially, emotionally, everything, and I was making minimum wage. And so sometimes you had to decide, toothpaste, deodorant, which one do I buy? And I had some abusive relationships. I lost my life savings. My sister took her life. My father died a terrible death. Oh, wow. So I've been through a lot of really hard times, and I wouldn't trade it for anything because it pushed me towards success and to motivate me to, I'm going to turn my life around. I'm going to be a great financial thing for my children and for myself. And it was those hardships, they're only failures if you don't get back up. But sometimes when we go through those hard things, we really appreciate the ability to motivate ourselves towards success.
No, I really marvel at the statement in your book that looking back, I would never change any adversity. It makes me who I am. And most people, I don't think, are able to do that. But what really positives do you take out of that crushing, financially challenged interlude of your life? And how did you do it? And is it something that other people can accomplish?
Well, I started, as I do everything, is incrementally. So when I had a job, I thought, I'm going to start a side job. Oh. And I became like a financial agent and a notary through the United States so that I could do different, like a signing agent. And so I started a side job. And then I worked my way up the corporate ladder. And then one day I quit a job making a lot of money and started a restaurant that I knew nothing about. But I knew that I could do it because I've always done vision boards and I've always said, I've used positive affirmations. I'm going to be this. I'm going to accomplish this. And I work toward it. It's not like I just say those things and then don't work and put it into action.
No, that's for sure. That taking that action is so important. Let's talk a bit about your book, Take the First Shot. How did you come up with the title, and what is the book's connection to basketball? I like that.
Well, everybody who comes to me, like a lot of the parents and even corporate people, they just say, like, fix it, or tell me how to fix it. And and I talk to the media, and they're like, okay, give me an example really quick. And I got thinking that everybody wants a quick fix, but you can't. I used to say you can't fix anything really quick, but I realized that you can start. You can make positive steps, and once you take one step, then you take two, then you take three, then you take four. And so I actually was always, one thing that I say all the time is like, fire that shot and do that. And I really don't think fire the shot is probably in today's society a good title. So take the shot is like basketball. Like you know the strategy of the game. And sometimes it's just that one shot that you can take to make all the difference in the game.
Yeah, once you make that shot, you really feel like you belong and you're in the game. That you have the skill and the aggressiveness to contribute something. And then, of course, you got to play with your other teammates to get anything done. But it makes a world of difference when you take that first shot and sink the basket.
And it also makes a difference when you make a three-pointer. I mean, that's like, wow, I'm doing leaps and bounds. That's your quantum leap,
And also, I like how you say, you may take one small step on the basketball court that frees you up to take the shot, so that you always should be looking for opportunities.
That's exactly right.
Well, so that we better understand our behavioral patterns, what's the book's primary purpose? Take the first shot. What are we trying to do by reading it?
I'm trying to get people to have faith, to understand that you do have that power within you to make a difference in your personal and professional life by taking that one step. And I give over 100 strategies so you can take more than one step. And then you can take bigger steps and reach bigger goals.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, each of the book's chapters offer tools for resolving issues in various areas of our life. For example, Chapter 1, Ebb and Flow of Relationships. Can you please give us a sample of some of the other chapter titles in the area that they cover?
Sure. I have the next one is relative to parents. It's parenting because I do a lot of, I have a lot of children that I coach and families. And so there's that. There's a chapter on friendship. There's a chapter on health. There's a chapter on work-life balance, on personal development and friendships. And the last one is some personal stories that are relative to gratitude and love and strength.
Yeah, I love that. But, well, where's the best place for listeners to go to preview and purchase your book, Take the First Shot?
It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and you can also go to my website. I also offer a lot of free information off of my website. It's lifecoachingandbeyond.com.
Yeah, you've got your Revolutionize podcast. You can the listener can access there too, and that web address once again is what? Give us your web address so that
www.lifecoachingandbeyond.com.
That will get you there. I tried it and it worked. Well, as we conclude this segment, please ask yourself this question, and no one need see the answer but you. Were my life to end at this very moment, would I be able to say without question that my life made a positive difference, if on no one else, at least on my spouse and my children? And next, bring to mind the most common solutions in your life where something goes wrong. Do you exhaust every effort to analyze what you have done wrong, how to relieve or improve the present situation, and how to do better the next time? And after every setback, do you concentrate on a positive plan of action rather than blaming yourself or others, bad luck, or someone else, and stressing out about how bad things are today? And explained so ably by my guest, Peggy Caruso, your focus on searching for solutions and envisioning a brighter tomorrow can revolutionize both your personal and your professional life even before the final results are in, and is an excellent resource to accomplishing your very own positive makeover. I highly recommend you preview and purchase Peggy's latest book, Take the First Shot, and I also recommend you visit Peggy's website, lifecoachingandbeyond.com, for helpful additional resources, including some great podcasts, and a fresh outlook on the present and the future is a wonderful way to start the new year. And thank you, Peggy Caruso. Happy New Year, and best of success with your book, your life coaching, and all that you do.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me as a guest, and Happy New Year to you as well.
Well, as we approach a new year, for many of us, it's a time of new beginnings, out with the old, in with the new. But I'd be willing to bet that few of any of you have experienced the new beginning of my next guest, John Curl. You see, John Curl not long ago came back from a near-death experience. And John's heart stopped, and he actually was gone from life for a full 10 seconds. But that's only part of the story. John Curl came back to the living with a new resolve that his mission on earth was far from over. As he tells it, a near-death experience made me realize that I needed to publish my book. And that book is his wonderful new novel titled The Outlaws of Maroon. And John is here to tell us about his near-death experience and the message it gave him, and also to preview for us his new book. And a bit about John Curl. He's author of 2 novels, a memoir, history, poetry, and translations of ancient Maya, Aztec, and Quechua poets. He has a degree in literature from New York City College and is a member of Penn Oakland and the San Francisco Revolutionary Poets Brigade, and a former professional woodworker. John resides in Berkeley in the San Francisco Bay Area. And hello, John Curl. Welcome to Middle Age Can Be Your Best Age.
Hi, Roy. Good to talk to you today.
Well, to begin, we'd like to hear more about your near-death experience. When and where did it occur, and was it sudden and unexpected, perhaps from an accident, or did it follow a lengthy illness? What was the deal on that?
No, it was not a lengthy illness. I had just been feeling weak, and so I called Kaiser, and they told me to come over, and they told me that the lower chamber of my heart was not working properly, and I needed a pacemaker.
Oh.
So I had one installed, and that evening, that night, and went home, and I felt sick again. I felt weak and sick. So I called them back, and they took me back there. It turned out the pacemaker wasn't working.
Oh, I see.
They have a technologist who tests these things on machines, and so the technologist went through this test of turning off the upper chamber of my heart so they could see exactly what was happening in the lower chamber of my heart.
Oh, I see.
And, but when they did that, everything went black.
Huh.
Wow. All of a sudden, I was no longer in the room. I went through it felt like a black tunnel, and I came out the other side into this dream world.
Oh, wow.
And I was just, it looked like, in a sense, kind of like a kid's painting. It just had a landscape painting. It just had like a rolling green hills and a blue sky, and I was just in this place, and it wasn't a scary place. It was just a different place, and then all of a sudden, I went black again, and I felt like I was going back through a tunnel, and there I was back in the emergency room, and they told me that they had and usually people have about 30% in their lower heart chamber, but I had 0, so I flatlined for 10 seconds.
So in effect, you left your heart in San Francisco, but you returned to retrieve it.
Right. It was 10 seconds. And they, the cardiologist said that was not long enough to cause brain damage, but technically I was dead for 10 seconds. It was a very strange experience.
But you didn't follow the light like some near-death experiences. You went through a tunnel then, but the result at the other end of the tunnel. That's just what it felt like. It was like I was in this black tunnel. Totally black, and then there was like kind of an end to the tunnel, and I came out into this dream. I thought I was just sleeping. I thought I just kind of fallen asleep, the night before, and I was just in in kind of dream worlds that you go into when you're sleeping. So you, in effect, didn't hear an inner voice that said, "This is not your time."
No, I didn't hear that. Other things happened later on, and that was not the end of that experience, because they had when they took me upstairs into the operating room, and they were trying to figure out what was wrong. They couldn't figure out. See, when you in this kind of operation, it's like being in the dentist chair. They don't knock you out, even though they're working on your heart.
Oh yeah.
You're just up there with a sheet over your head, so you hear everything that they're saying.
That's pretty scary.
It was kind of scary, but I mean, you can't. There's nothing you can do about it. So you can't jump up and say, let me out of here. So you just have to accept it. And they, it took them quite a while to figure out what was going on. And at one point, the cardiologist said to the group, does anybody have any ideas? He had tried everything. He had run out of ideas.
That's real comforting.
Yeah, right. I thought I was dead. I just accepted it. It was the last minutes of my life, and so I got myself ready for a death.
Yeah.
So,
well, based on your near-death experience, what convinced you that you needed to publish your book, The Outlaws of Maroon?
Well, it felt like it was really it was a book that came to me just out of nowhere. I was sitting down to write something else, and kind of just out of the blue, this idea came based on some childhood experiences that I had had in the 1950s during the Cold War, where I went to school. I was like the first generation who went to public school after World War II, and that was it was the time of the beginning of the Cold War, the McCarthy era, where
probably only our most senior baby boomer listeners will remember that era, but that was quite an era. That was the era of Howdy Doody and Captain Video, the Army McCarthy hearings, and the House Un-American Activities Committee. It was pretty scary. We'll talk a little about that when we talk about your book. But let's talk about your post-near-death mission. How much work, if any, remained for you to complete the book and get it published? And now that your book is published, what are your current projects?
Well, I had a first draft of it done of the book, and before I had this near-death experience, but it wasn't finished. You know how, at least the way I write, it's like telling a story over and over again. You know, when you kind of go over it, and every time you rewrite it, you understand it a little more deeply. And I knew the book was not finished. There were some parts of it that were rough. Some parts were finished, and some parts were not. So when I was lying there thinking I was dying, that was, on the one hand, that was one of the things that I had to give up. That was really important to me because I had put a lot of work into this, and it really meant something to me, and so I felt like when I was lying, thinking this was the last 10 minutes of my life. I had to give up everything. I had to give up like what I was going to do tomorrow morning and all these other plans that I had. But that's one of the things that I had to give up. So it was hard for me to give up, but I just let go of it.
Yeah.
And then when I didn't die, then it was like a new. I was given this extra time.
Yeah.
And that was in a way I kind of thought, well, that's the one of the things that I have this extra time to do is to finish the book. And so as soon as I got some energy back, I jumped into it and finished the book.
Well, if we may, let's talk a bit about your remarkable novel, The Outlaws of Murine. The primary characters in your book are fourth graders, 9 and 10 years old. Is this targeted as a children's book, or is it written for adults, including those of us at middle age and beyond?
Yes, it's not a children's book. It's an adult book with children as the main characters, and the first part of the book takes place maybe the first 100 pages from the point of view of the fourth graders, but later on it gets into the adult world more.
Yeah, too much. It was more pleasant with a kid in that era, but no, I can. Is that although this is a novel, your book is intended to deliver a message, which it does most effectively. And what is that message? I know maybe some people would interpret it differently, but it definitely had a message for me.
Well, in a big sense, is to struggle after your dreams. To get together with your friends or with like-minded people, and to join your forces and to go after your dreams, and that you can, no matter how impossible they may seem, no matter how great the odds against you are, that struggle is worthwhile, and it creates who you are.
Yeah. Well, they always say you can take a New Yorker out of New York, but you can't take New York out of the person. And obviously, we don't want to give away the plot and spoil the ending. But can you summarize the location where the novel takes place and the general circumstances of the time, the McCarthy era? What was it like?
Well, it takes place in Upper Manhattan near the George Washington Bridge, which is actually where I grew up.
Yeah.
It's based on, in terms of the setting, it's based on my childhood experience in growing up in that era. And it was a very repressive era, as opposed to a World War II where the country was really unified. Then all of a sudden, at the end of the war, there were things were falling apart, and the forces in politicians in Washington, for their own political purposes, had started this very extensive anti-subversive campaign.
Yeah, they looked for communists under every tree, it seems like. And
right, yeah, exactly. They were looking for communists, and communists to them, meant it meant many things, but what they were promoting it as subversives, as people who were trying to subvert the society. And being in school at that time was very chilling. It was to discussion in class. Not only the kids, but the teachers were really afraid to say anything because people were watching, and they during World War II, the Soviet Union was our ally. We were together fighting the Nazis, and then all of a sudden
suddenly they were
our enemies. So it was a very confusing time.
Yeah. Well, please explain the book's unusual title, The Outlaws of Maroon. I know the Outlaws are the fourth graders that somewhat between a club and a gang who organize themselves to fight against the adult world. But what is the Maroon? I've never heard of this location.
Well, Maroon is what they're calling. It's an abandoned farm of one of the main characters, owned by the grandfather of one of the main characters.
Yeah.
Where he had tried to start a farm in the 1930s and failed, and it was back in the sweatshops of New York. So Maroon became for the kids this imaginary place, this place which was kind of the opposite of everything that they were experiencing, which was a very repressive situation. And in their fantasies, it was kind of a utopia. And they're trying
for all of us, I think Maroon represents the dream of a better tomorrow where all the problems of the current challenges disappear, and that to me has a message in the title, but it's really fascinating. And your novel takes place in the early 1950s, an era where only the most senior of our baby boomers will remember, but the era of Howdy Doody, the infamous House Un-American Activities Committee, and the Army of McCarthy hearings, and it was a stressful period. And in your novel, The Outlaws of Maroon, is it presently available, and where best should our listeners go to preview and purchase the book?
People can purchase it. It's available online and in bookstores. But the easiest thing is just to go to Amazon or to one of the other online booksellers and to purchase it there. That's where. But it's it's definitely out there, and it's there's also an audio book of it, and an e-book on Kindle, and whatever whatever your preference is for enjoying fiction, you can find it out there.
Where on the web can our listeners go to learn more about you and preview your prior books? And do you have a web address they can go to?
Yes, it's just my name, basically, johncurl.net, JOHNCURL.net. And there's a lot on my website about the book and about myself and about other books.
Well, I won't spoil the plot by telling the listeners whether the kids ever make it to Maroon or not, but you'll have to read the book to find out. But it's really, as we kick off a new year, I trust that unlike John Curl, none of you will need to go through a near-death experience to realize that you have a lot more to live for, as we like to call it in our program, quit sleepwalking through life. And whether you are just turning 40 or 63 and contemplating retirement, you are retiring from your current career, not from life. And middle age definitely is not a point of no return to mourn over what used to be and to conclude the best is all behind you. And regardless of immediate circumstances, like the kids decided, the future is up to you. And I trust that you will gain insight from John Curl's The Outlaws of Maroon. And not only does the book offer a page-turning good time, like John's near-death experience, his book may inspire you to live the remainder of your life out loud, just like the kids did. And before we go, I'd like to share one trivia about the Howdy Doody show, which is mentioned in the book. In fact, one of the kids had appeared in the peanut gallery, but then got kicked out. You may recall that one of the show's major characters, Clarabelle the Clown, could not speak and communicated only by honking a horn tied around his waist to attract attention. Well, guess what? The original actor who portrayed Clarabelle, Bob Keeshan, somehow found his voice, and for many years thereafter was Captain Kangaroo on the Daily Network kids show of the same name. And how do I know that? Well, for several years in the early 1980s, I worked in the same department of a Fortune 500 company with Bob's daughter-in-law, Lynn Keeshan. Now, there's a coincidence I'm certain you just had to know. And John Curl, thanks a million for inspiring us today with your near-death story.
Thank you so much, Roy, for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
And I previewed your novel, The Outlaws of Maroon, and I highly recommend our listeners consider adding it to their New Year's reading list. And to all of you out there, a most joyful and productive New Year, and may all of you arrive at your very own Maroon, and may your Maroon, your dream, turn out to be all you envisioned it to be and more. And bye for now, from Middle Age Can Be Your Best Age.
You've been listening to Middle Age Can Be Your Best Age, hosted by Roy Richards, an expert on midlife renewal and author of both A Midlife Challenge, Wake Up, and Wake Up, Captain and Crew, Restart Your Engines. You can learn more about Roy and his Middle Age Renewal Training System by visiting his website, middleagerenewal.com.